Hello and welcome to session 22 of the 5-Minute Bible Guides. In session 21, we looked at whether archaeology confirms or contradicts the biblical record, and we concluded that since archaeologists are people, their biases often determine what they think about what they find. In this session, we're going to be discussing whether science and the Bible conflict, as some people claim. So does science conflict with the Bible? To start off, it's important to remember that though the Bible is never anti-science, it was not intended to be a scientific textbook. It's also important to keep in mind that the books of the Bible were written long before the scientific method ever came on the scene. So let's look at what Merriam-Webster does in terms of defining scientific method. So Merriam-Webster defines the scientific method as principles and procedures for the systematic pursuit of knowledge involving, for example, the recognition and formulation of a problem, the collection of data through observation and experiment, and the formulation and testing of hypotheses. In other words, the scientific method is an excellent tool for understanding the natural world. We can make good use of science to identify problems, to gather information, to form and test hypotheses through repetition and experimentation on natural objects, natural processes, and so forth. A hypothesis can be proved through the scientific method. When it's proved, it's considered a scientific fact or even a scientific law, for example, the law of gravity. Hypotheses that cannot be absolutely proven, but that seem to be supported by a large amount of evidence, they're classified as scientific theories, such as the theory of evolution. So as amazing a tool as science is for learning about the natural world, it does have its limitations. Limitations of the scientific method include, for example, science has no ability to discuss things that cannot be observed, measured, or analyzed in the natural world. For instance, science cannot explain the complexity of abstract concepts such as love, beauty, humor, joy, morality, or human relationships. Although science may dispute supernatural phenomena like miracles, it cannot disprove them since miracles are by definition exceptions to the natural laws of the universe. In other words, miracles are non-repeatable, non-verifiable occurrences that lie outside science's ability to measure and explain. So even though science can attempt to describe how things work in the natural world, it also often cannot explain why things work the way they do. For example, science may have now shown how gravity works, but it still cannot fully explain why gravity works that way, or even why the universe operates according to the precise mathematical laws that it does operate by. As I mentioned a minute ago, the Bible was written long before science as we understand it was even conceived of. The scientific method was first used around the 11th century AD, at least 1,000 years after the last of the biblical books were written. Because the procedures of modern science were developed long after the Bible was complete, people should not expect it to reflect the kind of scientific precision and language often expected in the 21st century. On the other hand, simply because the Bible does not use scientific procedures and forms of communication does not mean that the Bible is unscientific or that it contains factual errors. Examples of biblical agreement of scientific principles include the following. The Roman Catholic Church denounced scientists like Copernicus and Galileo, who lived in the 14 and 1500s, also 1600s, for the teaching that the earth revolves around the sun. However, church authorities were mistaken in assuming that the Bible teaches that the sun revolves around the earth. Now, although Ecclesiastes 1:5 says that the sun rises and sets, this should be understood as describing figurative language rather than scientific terminology. In other words, the Bible often describes what people observe rather than what technically occurs. Even today, we often say that the sun rises and sets, which is not a technically accurate statement for us either, who claim to be scientific. For centuries, even educated people thought that the earth was flat, but the Bible in Isaiah 40:22 actually can be interpreted as stating that the earth is spherical. It says, God sits above the circle of the earth, and this Isaiah passage seems to reinforce several other ancient documents that describe the earth as a globe. The Bible describes many other facts and processes that have only recently been recognized by science, including the hydrological cycle, where it says all streams flow into the sea, and yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again. That's Ecclesiastes 1:7. Or how about the vital function of blood, where it says the life of a creature is in the blood? That's Leviticus chapter 17:11. Perhaps the best argument for the harmonization of the Bible and science is in the field of teleology. Now, I'm not saying theology, which is the study of God, but teleology, the study of evidence as to whether the universe was designed with an end or purpose in mind. Recent scientific discoveries about the origins of the universe and basic molecular structure of living cells both reinforce the idea that the universe seems to have been designed with specific purposes and functions in mind. Examples of design in the universe include things like the mathematical precision of natural laws, or the existence of certain basic constants on which the functioning of everything in the universe depends, such as the speed of light, electromagnetic properties, and the operation of gravity. The specific position of the Earth in the solar system and the size and nature of the Sun, as well as the location of the solar system within the Milky Way galaxy, all are uniquely right for life to exist. And these and other scientific discoveries continue to show that if conditions were different even to the smallest degree, life would be impossible. So the claim that science and the Bible are somehow in conflict is incorrect. Science is an excellent tool for looking at the physical universe, but it can't explain how the universe came to be or even why it works the way it does. The Bible supplies those answers, and yes, the Bible records miracles. But even there, science can't really dispute whether miracles can occur. It can only say that miracles don't happen in the normal course of natural events. Yet if God exists, and he does, then he can override his own creation and do wondrous things if he so chooses. He can suspend his own natural laws. In the next session, we'll be looking into a topic that you may not have heard of, but that is at the heart of the criticism and skepticism toward the Bible that is so much a part of our modern society. We're going to examine the question of what is the higher critical viewpoint towards the Bible, what is higher criticism. Till then, this is Dr. Michael Bogart for the 5-Minute Guides to the Bible.